You know, it's not exactly every day that a single becomes what a band is. But then again, not every band is Oasis. And in 1995, that is exactly what they did when they released the song Wonderwall. Today we're going to find out what made this album, as I throw it back to you, and of course on this retro review on Oasis's album, Wonderwall. Today's topic is a very underrated album that no one ever talks about, called What's the Story? Morning Glory. Now, if there is one word that people use to describe Oasis, then that word has to be modest. After all, just listen to the members talk about themselves in this interview.
Hyped as the best band around at the moment. Is all the hype true?
Yeah.
It is.
Good. The best band about today on the planet. It's a fact.
Ah, see what I mean? Truly humbling beans. Quite surprising as well for a group that inspired the Beatles and their music. Jokes aside though, of course, the meteoric rise of Oasis can be traced back a few years prior, when a small band called the Stone Roses made their debut album in 1989 and caused a massive shift in the Manchester music scene, and people began to flock to this new style of music in the droves, spurred in part by the nightclubs that sprawled around. Fast forward a couple of years and a new generation of English bands were leading the charge, such as The Prodigy, The Verve, Blur, and of course Oasis being one of the most prominent of these acts that were born out of the great British music battle of the 90s, where outlets posed the question of who was better, Blur or Oasis. Of course the latter, but this was nothing more than a marketing ploy which saw Blur win the battle, but Oasis clearly won that war. By the time the band's debut album Definitely Maybe landed, it would cause a stir in the music world, and since that record went to #1, why not try it again? In a very short period, Oasis had gone from performing in small pubs to large crowds, and the band were not running out of steam anytime soon. Spurred on by nothing more than pints of lager, being paid in parkas, a steady intake of cigarettes and alcohol, and most likely an ample supply of Bolivian marching powder, the band recorded their next album, What's the Story? Morning Glory, in May of 1995, and finished it after only 15 days in the studio with their previous producer Owen Morris at the helm, who described the entire process as a mad blur which saw Oasis record a song nearly every day. The only tune which gave the band any grief was Some Might Say, which shared an interesting anecdote almost mirroring the backstory for I'm Butterfly and their hit song Inagata da Vida. After getting pretty drunk and listening back to the demo version for this tune, Noel and Owen decided to record the vocals for the song, but Noel's version was too fast. After the band heard it, they decided to keep it in there, with Noel having to record multiple vocal layers to this new tempo, and Owen applying some production techniques to mask this error. For those who are interested in the demo, this can actually be heard on the deluxe edition for this record. You're gonna be the one that saves me. Now, if there was ever an album to discuss notable songs on, then this would be one, because there are just so many on here. In fact, I'm going to highlight for you right now which songs are indeed worthy of listening to and make it abundantly transparent to anyone who is unsure. Look, I'm sure you don't need another video talking about Wonderwall and how awesome that song is, but if I had $1 for every time I heard that tune, I'd be a freaking millionaire by now, and I get why. It's a very catchy earworm that stays with you forever and makes you want to learn how to play it on guitar. Eventually, you start to hear it so often that it gets to the point of oversaturation, and if I'm being perfectly candid, I don't think I could ever listen to this song again. With the only exception being if I heard it being performed live by Oasis themselves in a very live setting, of course. Even the band members have mixed feelings surrounding this tune, stating in interviews how out of place this piece is for the record, or their disdain for how much of a runaway success this song is, and that means of course they will have to play it at every concert until the heat death of the universe. However, this song is also the main reason why so many fans flocked to this record, as it most likely served as the first tune you ever heard by them, and this was certainly the case for me. You said that you've never been, but all the things that you've... Now, I've already mentioned how quickly this album came together, and I'm sure you've also heard stories how other bands have written songs in a very short period and managed to record it, of course. For example, Black Sabbath managed to do it with their song Paranoid, which came together in mere hours. However, when I read the backstory for Don't Look Back in Anger, I was completely dumbfounded by the backstory. According to Noel, Oasis was set to perform at an arena with the Verve and were performing at a soundcheck when Noel started strumming a few riffs for what would become this song. Liam knew that Noel was onto something, and the pair went backstage immediately and started writing the lyrics to this new song. In the space of about 2 hours, the duo had written this song and performed an acoustic version for the crowd that very night. Now there's another interesting fact that surrounds this song, and if what I'm reading is believed to be true, then this song made its debut also on the 40th anniversary for a play called Look Back in Anger that centers around an angry and rebellious youth, which would be rather ironic of course given how the Gallaghers certainly poised themselves in the public's eye. But then again, angry youth is certainly nothing new. The last song of this record is certainly one of the highlights, and even features Paul Weller from The Jam on guitar here. This song would also be released in the US, reaching #1 on the Mon Rock charts, and even looked like they would get a chance to do so on the Billboard Top 100, falling short however and peaking at number 20. It has been described as the most psychedelic song that Noel will ever write, with Noel even re-recording a 6-hour ambient version of this piece to be used by photographer Zoe Laws at their Legends exhibit, which sounds like a very blissful way to spend 6 hours if you ask me, or a calming soundtrack to your acid trip. Critics often point to this tune for its nonsensical lyrics such as slowly walking down the hall, faster than a cannonball, but seem to be remaining oblivious to the fact that Nirvana exists and their songs don't exactly require clear or precise details to be awesome. But I'd love to hear in the comment section how you interpret this line in the song, because I've always viewed it as, I guess, time being perceived to what the individual feels like rather than what is the truth. The bonus tracks. While we are of course discussing songs, I want to mention how the deluxe edition of this record contains many B-sides and cover songs that I was not aware of, such as the band covering Come On Feel the Noise, originally written by Slade, but made famous by Quiet Riot when they were pressured to do this, and they in turn performed it badly on purpose as a joke. Unfortunately, it also became their biggest hit. Now I'd like to say that the sentiment stays true on here as well, as this is clearly a piss take and is likely spawned as a joke song that they would perform. But hey, if we're going to be talking about worthy B-sides, then let's mention Aqueous, which is where it's at. This song could have easily been on the album and is one of the band's better known secrets, with this track being performed live quite often. Instead, it was kept as a B-side intentionally for the true fans, and I'm sure it is a highlight within the community. I don't know where I would be if I didn't have this album thrust upon me, and I'm glad that it did roll my way, because when I put that CD in my Discman some 20 plus years ago, it stayed in that place on repeat for at least 3 months. I don't think I'm going to be able to underpin just how important this record truly was and how it transformed me and served as an introduction for a style of music that wasn't heavy metal for once or the Red Hot Chili Peppers. It broadened my horizons at the end of the day. This led me down a path of infatuation with pretty much anything the band was doing at that time, as me and a group of my friends all got into this record at the same time and talked at great lengths about how good each song was, or which one was our favourite tune, or how good it would be to hear them live. But unfortunately, it was not a great time for Oasis fans in Australia, with the brothers delaying world tours, their excessive drug use, and fighting constantly to the point that they were not even on talking terms for years. This album follows to a T the blueprint for what excess and success can do to a young band, but it was a truly mesmerising experience to anyone who witnessed it. I'm sure old school fans would recall weekly updates from news articles about the debauchery from the band members, but the times that they shone the brightest off stage had to be their sense of humour during interviews, and that remains obstinately very British.
Right then, who's first then? Who's not here? It's got to be you there with that weird haircut there. How many haircuts you got there for?
What do you think is the worst fashion mistake someone's made? Have you seen someone that's so like so fashionable and is really doing your head in and it looks hideous?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Who?
You.
Oh, you bastard.
I had The Darkness on my show on Friday.
Whoopee.
I love going back and watching these videos because they have to be some of the funniest musicians to hear, And let's all admit it, if you could have a beer with any musician in the world, then Oasis would have to be up there. There is no denying this is the type of album you play from start to finish, and without any stops, because from the moment you press play, the entire record is just engaging with no wasted moments. Even the instrumental tracks feel like a necessary serving as a stopgap to catch our breath and reflect on the music that just graced our ears. Anyway, enough brown nosing, let's move it along. The album received universal acclaim upon its release, with a collection of scores on the screen right now from various music publications. Meanwhile, over at rachelmusic.com, the album sits at a score of 3.72 from nearly 30,000 reviews. Overall, I'm going to give this album a score of 14.5 million chilies on the spicy scale, with my favourite tracks being the entire fucking record, of course. But if I really had to pick, it would probably be Morning Glory, Don't Look Back in Anger, and Champagne Supernova.
Here's a thought for every man who tries to understand.
Do I really need to tell you about the legacy this album left? It spawned 6 singles. That's more than half the record if you don't include the interlude tracks, and not to mention the famous B-sides, which are regulars for live set lists. It was the highest selling album in England for the decade. It has spent over 700 weeks in the Billboard Top 100 Albums charts. It helped everyone who knew how to play 4 chords on a guitar get laid, as they always played this song at every single pub or house party that you've ever been to. It's also been streamed more than 2.5 billion times on Spotify, and it's been called the 90s version of Nevermind the Bollocks for causing the Manchester music scene to blow up as big as it would become. Sure, you could argue how poised it had been for the previous couple of years with acts like Stone Roses or Blur, and of course the music publications and media certainly knew something was really around the corner. But what's the story? Morning Glory was the ignition source for this main vine that was already filling with gas. While Blur were selling out arenas in places like Japan, as shown on their live album at the Budokan, Oasis were performing in front of 250,000 fans that very year at Nebworth in what many would call their career-defining performance. But hey, that's the power of Oasis and their melodies. After all, they were the band that influenced the Beatles.
It's a peddling.
In one of my favourite stories surrounding the aftermath of this record, Noel would go out and buy a 1967 Mark II Jaguar and would drop a shitload of cash on it, doing all kinds of features like a drop-down roof, custom inlays, a wooden dash, and even converting it to automatic transmission, despite the fact that he had no driver's license, making him unable to drive the damn thing. And of course, the brothers' dry remarks during interviews plumbed from their well of wit. Any compilation clip that you can find is just incredibly funny to watch. It's just a shame that all this success went to their head, considering the next album that was just around the corner. But I guess that's best left for another discussion for another day.
And this is where the video concludes. We are at the Oasis concert, and I hope that you really enjoy this whole video. Thank you.
If you've enjoyed this content, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to us, and stay notified for future music related content, because it keeps our manager happy at the end of the day. We are also on Discord, Instagram, Facebook, and all those other social platforms if you want to check us out. As always, people, you have a great day and stay spicy.